Hey, it's been a while. I want to take this opportunity to make a more casual video about something I'm kind of passionate about writing. Over the past few months, 3 months, I don't know, since whenever, I just took a break. I've been doing a lot of writing scripts that never got finished, writing novels that never got finished. And something I consistently realized is that it's very easy to tell somebody why writing is bad. I had a video in the works at one point, responding to Lily Orchard's 100 writing tips, and 88 points I got through, I believe. 88 points. It was over an hour long at that point. I might link some of the clips in post. If you're writing fantasy and you have no issues including dragons in your world, but suddenly think people of color are unrealistic because something medieval Europe, you're a huge turd and an idiot. Okay, this is probably directed toward The Witcher, show on Netflix that had people got pissed because it takes place in medieval Poland, but has a black character in it. Which, I mean, if you're going through for historical authenticity, I'd say, okay, yeah, then don't write black people, write Polish people because they're Polish and not um they're not black. But if once again, yeah, if you're going, you can include people of color in your medieval works, but if the author is making the decision to say this is blatantly medieval European, I'm including white people because white people lived in medieval Europe, then that's completely their prerogative, and you don't get to say no, that's bigoted because that's a very real choice people are allowed to make. But needless to say, yeah, it's very easy to tell somebody why something it's bad. It's very easy to tell people things as in a position of authority. Another thing I've realized is that creative writing classes are the biggest fucking scam that's been sold to anybody this century. Cause, okay, like you go to English class to improve your conventions of the English language. You go to math class to improve your conventions in mathematics. Classes are about teaching conventions. Creative writing has no conventions. You can teach a man how to speak the English language and they'll speak it just fucking fine. You can teach a man how to do math and they'll do it just fucking fine. You can, and once again, you can teach a man how to fish and he'll do it just fucking fine. It's very uh, baseline skills. They're things that have defined conventions, and once you know how to do it, you won't fuck it up. But you can't really teach somebody how to write creatively. And I think that's what a bunch of creative writing classes get wrong. I think that's what Lily Orchard got wrong in her writing tips thread, is that they're trying to educate people on how to write creatively. There are no agreed upon conventions. Everybody writes differently, and if you're saying okay, creative writing class, that's inherently an oxymoron because you're saying that there's conventions for doing something creatively, and there's fucking not. That said, you can certainly share your own philosophy when it comes to writing, and maybe people will pick up stuff from that. There are certainly things that you can point out and say, yeah, this objectively makes good writing. And you can point things out and say, this objectively makes bad writing. So, with that out of the way, I'd like to go over a little bit of my philosophy while writing. This is mostly novel focused, but I mean, you can apply it to any venture of creative writing that loosely applies to this, I guess. Alright, number one, good writing is about characters. I want to switch gears for a second and talk about the anime Don't Toy With Me, Miss Nagatoro. The art in this show is fucking beautiful. It's really good. The dialogue is alright, the voice actors are good, and I guess the banter's alright. The characters fucking suck. This is an indisputable point. The main character is he's the strongest character, and he's still very milk toast meek. He's got a good head on his shoulders, but he's still not a particularly standout character. Nagatoro is a fucking annoying shitheel. her friends are bitches and snakes, and overall, it's not very fun to watch. Everybody's annoying. You don't want to create annoying characters. Your character is supposed to be the vessel for the plot, at least the way I write. Characters are a vessel for the plot. Everything's a vessel for the plot. The plot inherently is not as important as the characters. It's how the characters interact with stuff, it's how the characters deal with stuff that makes the plot interesting. And if your characters are bad, then you could have the best fucking plot in the world. People probably talk about, oh, the chemistry in Nagatoro is good. You could have the best fucking chemistry in the world. If your characters aren't interesting, then it doesn't matter. It all mute. Um, so you want okay, and having good characters does not mean having like good guys. I I personally think that if your character's just a good guy, then he's boring. In the first chapter of the manuscript I'm working on, Hearts and Minds and Cyanide, the main character becomes a fucking war criminal. That doesn't mean he's a bad character inherently. A good character has depth. Nobody in Nagatoro has depth. What do you know about what's her name? Hayache Nagatoro? What do you know about her? Nothing. What do you know about the main character? Nothing. What do you know about their friends? Nothing. That's how you should gauge a good character. What can you tell me about them? Nothing. And if that's what you're coming on, then you've written a bad character. Ideally, your characters are nuanced enough to express not only the plot of the book or work in their own ways, but also to express the themes of the novel. And they go along with the style of the novel. Your characters are vessels. They can be vessels for a lot of things. But at the end of the day, if you write annoying characters, or if you write characters that don't do anything, then they shouldn't be there. If your character serves nothing, then why write it? Secondly, good writing is about subtext. It. I don't know if this is universal, but at least in the type of writing that I do, and the type of writing I think everybody should do, you should have a theme at least set out before you start working. You need to have like a feel for your creative work. Now, for example, in something I'm writing, Criminal of Purpose, it's the theme is like a spiritual journey expressed through war. If you have no theme, if you're not saying anything, then why write at all? If your writing has no subtext, if your writing has nothing deeper to say, then it's almost like you've written complete fluff. And who wants to read fluff? People want to read things that are thought provoking and that will make you think about an issue. Going back to the work I mentioned before, Hearts and Minds of Cyanide, the fact that he's a war criminal is playing into the subtext. It's catering to the disillusionment that the main character feels with the U.S. involvement in the Middle East. It's the fact that so many the U.S. military is completely fucking up its job over there, and they're killing too many civilians. And sure, he's part of that, but it all caters to disillusionment. Disillusionment is one of the main themes of the novel. It's as simple as that. It can be established in the first chapter. It can be established later on. But if there's not something deeper going on, then you have to question what you're writing. If your writing is surface deep, then you got to consider who you're writing for. If you're writing for children, sure, maybe that's fine. If you're writing, I guess, YA, sure, that's fine. I don't know. I don't read YA. But at the end of the day, if you're writing something that you want to be remembered for, as at the end of the day, all writers are probably writing to be remembered. If you're writing something that people are going to read, that people are going to remember, then it's important to have something going on under the hood. It's not just a plot. The plot means something. And I wanted to add this in. A lot of people, when you're in like your English class reading like a separate piece or some shit, and your teacher's going on about how like the themes and like the symbolism in the novel, and you say, "Oh, it's not intentional," the writer definitely didn't intend this. It's like the fucking memes about how the English teachers go into fucking everything. I want to tell you now, whoever's saying, if you're saying that, you're completely wrong. If something's in the novel, it's only because the author intended it. If a theme is in the novel, more than likely the author's fucking intended it. And I know firsthand, in my manuscripts, the everything's important. Going down to like the fucking places and names of characters. Like, what can you tell me about the name Kreutzer, for example? Would you tell me that it represents a theme of like religiosity? It means crossbearer in French, essentially. So yeah, you get a theme of religiosity, but it's not biting you in the fucking face. You don't have to make symbolism incredibly obvious. What can you tell me about the significance of the location of Germantown, Ohio? Because I can tell you that it's significant because it has the oldest church on the Ohio National Historic Place Register. It's not incredibly obvious, but it still does serve the theme of like of spirituality, and that's quite all right. Just because it may seem like a stretch doesn't mean it's not. If it's in there, then the author definitely intended it. All right, number three. Good writing is about style. And this is where I think creative writing classes really fail. You can't teach style. Ideally, most people have a style when writing, and maybe you have an inspiration. I have an inspiration. Evan Wright, Cleveland journalist. He wrote Generation Kill and is best known for something called immersion journalism. It's a very interesting style of writing that is a mix of editorial, like stuff you'd see in the newspaper, and like legit novel writing, legit creative writing. It's not something you would expect. I think it's very unique, and it's what I've tried to apply to my own works. Of course, being in the same genre, that being military uh, type stuff, it's very easy to apply. But of course, I have my own style too. I don't just take Evan Wright's style, I mold it to how I write. A lot of long prose, a lot of interspersed dialogue, a lot of more surreal scenes, stuff that Wright doesn't do in his own novels is stuff that I add. Because at the end of the day, people will recognize you by your style. That's one of the most recognizable things that anybody could like do. If you have a style, then people are going to remember it. And ideally, you should improve and refine your style until you can confidently say, yeah, look at this, I wrote it. I wrote this, and it will be immediately recognizable as mine. Once you've done that, I think you're on a pretty good path. And if anybody tries to teach you how to write style, then they're liars. You can't teach a style. It's just something you're going to have to get over on your own. And there's no change in that. All right, four. Good writing is about innovation. This is something that's very difficult because it's not exactly easy, especially right now when it feels like everything's already been done. People are telling you that everything's already been done. There's nothing unique you could do, and that's never true. The ideas in your head are solely your own. If you're not plagiarizing, then you're doing something new. You're doing something unique. Sure, it might be derivative in some way, but as long as you're adding on to something that has already been previously done, if you're creating something new, if you're putting your own ideas into the mix, then it's worth something. Then you've innovated. I'm currently, the two novels I'm writing right now are part of something I'm trying to do where it's, you've heard about parallel structure in a sentence probably. I'm trying to do that, but like between novels. I want to draw parallels between these two characters, what are their names? Dwerryhouse and Kreutzer, where they come from very similar backgrounds as Midwestern white kids raised on like Christian family values, and see how they deal with their individual situations. One being strengthened by their experiences as a peacekeeper in a fictional African nation, and one experiencing the breakdown of his sheepdog philosophy as he realizes that through war, trying to be a protector of other people, he only hurts not only the people he loves, but other families in the process. It's, I don't know if it'll work out, but at the end of the day, I'm still trying to do, at least I'm trying to do something new. I'm trying to say, yeah, okay, I'm writing these three novels, sure, but I want them to be connected. I don't know if any other writer's done that before. I'm sure people have tried, but it would be very difficult to notice. And that's the thing. Innovations are best when they're not noticeable, like they don't jump out at you. If something's more subtle, then you've innovated well. It's almost like it was never there, but it definitely improves your style. And that's grand. And finally, good writing is timeless. I want to bring us back to Nagatoro for a second. Okay, I want to pretend I'm talking to the guy who's in charge of like the local English localization of this anime. So I'd like to extend a chat to this man. My dear retard, what the fuck are you doing? I'm sure you've seen online. They use a lot of English slang. Sus is something that comes up in the dialogue multiple times in that anime. I'm not fucking joking you. And whoever let that through should be fucking fired because that immediately dates your piece of creative writing. You never want a piece of writing to feel dated. You want to know why people don't like playing N64 or like PS1, like the 3D PS1 or Sega Saturn games anymore because they're dated as fuck. Nobody wants to play a game that's aged like shit. Nobody wants to watch something that's aged like shit. And when you add like slang to your novel, you are aging your novel. Unless it's like incredibly relevant, like when I mentioned Generation Kill, there is a lot of military slang in that novel, but it's relevant. That's how the people fucking spoke. You can't write a military novel without military slang, but you can write a modern, like, romantic comedy without including slang, like internet slang, because at the end of the day, you're not doing any favors for yourself. Your dialogue and your themes and your plots ideally should be timeless, even if they're taking place in a certain time period, like most works do. um, the theme should be immediately recognizable. The reason why, like Lord of the Flies or like Of Mice and Men, of what's it called, of Separate Pace, you might scoff at the notion that, oh, nobody cares about these novels anymore. No, these live on. The reason they're taught in your English class still is because anybody can pick them up from any time period, and even if they don't have like a point of reference for that time period, they can still understand the themes. They can still understand the plot, and they can still understand the characters. They involve things that will never go away. They involve the very nature of what it means to be a human, and that's why nobody's ever going to forget them, for better or worse. But yeah, hopefully you've learned something. Hopefully I haven't just been fucking waffling on for 16, 17 minutes for nothing. And if you feel so inclined, get out there and go write. See ya. Have another video coming down the pipeline real soon, I hope.